Okay, so that was a big lead in. There's still no one there. So, what I'd suggest is keep an eye out because if I've got nothing happening, this is a favourite time. I wait until the oh boom, people popping up. I wait until the 4 o'clock UTC in the afternoon, 1600 UTC in the afternoon. That's the latest round of positions. That's 5 o'clock here in France. We're actually here in France until the end of end of next month. Jane's off to China, and then we'll be in China for a week, and then heading to Fiji. So I've got to work out what we do in China. I forget what's happening there now because it's all censored and it's got restrictions on blogs and some websites and bits and pieces. So I'm not sure whether the live goes up or not. Anyway, we'll worry about that later. So we're here now, and it's kind of fun because the fleet's really experiencing something pretty different. First of all, it's incredibly hot, but we'll talk about all that later when I get to the end of the tracker. So I'm going to go straight into the tracker. G'day, Roger. I see Roger's there. So if you've got any questions, stick them up. It's the weekend. We can waffle on, but I haven't got a lot to waffle on about, so this will be pretty quick, I think. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. Boom. Okay, so here comes the tracker, and I'll get on the tracker here. So I'm looking at what you're looking at. I'll just make that a bit bigger. The first surprise is Friday's gone and they didn't go, which is understandable. I would never leave on a Friday. We've talked about that. But the boys are still sitting in Panama. Normally, you'd have to think maybe there's women involved. Oh, I don't know. If I told you a funny story, seeing we digress as the weekend, a guy I know a long time ago. Oh, no, I shouldn't go there. Anyway, the short story was he ended up burning down the Bilbao Yacht Club in Panama because of a certain big party they had. And this was about 50 years ago or more. Anyway, long story. Would involve women, in Panama. So I don't know why they're still there. We haven't heard anything from them. They're still planning to get underway, but it's taken a while. And Gary's bringing up the rear here, so that's all good. And it's been fun watching. Oh, Kerry's got on top of Ayrton now. Kerry has been gaining on Ayrton, and now you can't even see him, but he's in underneath Kerry. And Renaud is slowly creeping away from Holiday Dan, who's been doing a great job keeping up with him. So that's kind of cool. And if we pan out and just look at the first thing, you can see they're all going to start running out of breeze. So this is the start of the tricky zone now. They've been very lucky riding that lot down, and they're still sailing, so that's good. But let's have a look at. I can probably pick that up one more size, so we can see. You can see roughly where they were. So Gary down the back here is supposed to have a bit more breeze, and he's got a current up there. He's still in the current line, 4.2 knots and only 71 mile day, which is surprising. Just to position the current, you'll see some of the guys have come out of it, but Gary's still in it. Our guys got across this bland area of current, and now the lead guys, now they've all had a bit of a push and sailing out the other side. So that's just a quick grab at where the current is right now. We go back to the wind, and Gary's doing okay. 4.2. It's probably showing 10 to 15 knots there. Smooth seas, 71 miles. I would have thought he'd get a bit more miles than that, but there's been quite a few saying at night time it's just been dropping off. Now, oh no, hang on a sec. Kerry's not on top of him, so the times must be different. 1200. He's back on 1200 again. Don't ask me why. So they're side by side, and Kerry was just going past him because it was he's doing 6.4, and Ayrton's doing 6.7. Jeepers. Okay, so Kerry is behind there, but believe me, he's right up alongside him, and I've got no idea why he's missed the report. It's all been working well up until now. At that point, he was doing 123 mile day, and Ayrton's doing 119. So anyway, imagine Kerry's right up here and probably a mile or two in front of Ayrton. So Eric, on the 1600 report, 125 mile day, that's pretty good. 6.7 knots, that's even better because there's not as much current assist there. So that's doing okay. Josh hanging in alongside, 5.8 knots, 108 mile day, lost a little bit to Eric. And look at Jasmine, she's right up there, 5.5 knots and 115 mile a day. So she's holding on and sailing really well. So that's good to see. Flying the flag there. Big surprise, Christian's showing as the leader because he's closest to the rum line, where the rum line's going. I've got to extend that back to show you, but this is what's happening here because Christian's got a few challenges on board at the moment as well. But you can see because of the rum line going down that way, it's not going via the Galapagos. He's showing, if you draw a line that way and the finish is that way, he's showing as if he's in the lead at the moment. Certainly he's done okay, but we just got a report from his manager. His engine now is dead flat. The battery's dead flat. I'm not sure when that happened. He could have been motoring in the calms to catch up. I have no idea. He had that incident with little B where he went back 1.5 miles to pick him up and tow him out 1 mile or so. So that could have used up the battery. But either way, he is actually not a bad position, especially when you look at this factor. At some point down the line, they're all going to come down here and they're going to try and turn to the left. Okay, now when that happens, you can see if the course was now to go with the rum line, then Christian is the closest, and Renaud would have gone too far south. So by the time he turns, he loses a bit of ground. That's a theoretical one. It's probably not going to happen like that because they'll come down and turn slowly. Jeepers, I bet they wish they were down there now because the trades have come right up here. That's different than it was showing the other day. So we'll come back to have a look at that. So I'll just get this down, build it up again, and we'll just focus on the individual performance for now, and then we'll look at the weather. One bigger one. So Christian's doing okay. The other thing he's got a problem with, he didn't manage to download any of the electronic charts. He thought he'd do it underway with his Starlink, but of course he had a land-based subscription to the Starlink, so the Starlink wasn't working, so that hasn't allowed him to put any charts on. That didn't work, and he's only got large, or like a big map with a small land on it. You can call that large scale or small scale, but it means he hasn't got the fine detail to get into any of the anchorages across the Pacific. So he's got a bit of a problem, and I was speaking with his manager who was wondering about what to do. He might have to go into Galapagos and so on. They're trying to organise a seagoing subscription for the Starlink so he can then download the charts into the plotter. His other satellite comms are going okay, but he has got flat batteries on the engine now, and he'll try and charge them as best he can. So that's the story there. Then Pila, 5.4. Pila's come across. She's got the bad colour track. It's hard to see where she's going, but still hanging in there, performing better than the main pack down here. She's catching up. I think she is 124 mile day. Holiday Dan 110 mile day, and Renaud 110 mile day. So she's actually catching up. Closed the gap a bit from yesterday, which is interesting. But you can see here, even with this forecast, and it's very hard for this to be accurate, it's suggesting there's light to no wind here. So Renaud and Dan would be slowing down, and the backpack is going to start catching up, maybe, if this graphic is correct. So anyway, Pila doing well. 5.4 knots, 124 mile day. Jacob, not far behind, 123 mile day. So they're obviously sailing in better breeze. 5.5 knots for now. Adam War, 6 knots and 116 mile day. So there's a bit of contrast there. 4.9 knots, 111 mile days for Canadan. I like that. Canadan, right? That's what he suggested. I like it. Mark's just having fun sailing. I think he's trying to go as fast as he can, but can't get away. It's a big, heavy boat. So that's a quick rundown. They're all moving. It looks like they're going to start losing it as they come forward. So let's just have a look here. I'll push this up. Cheapest. Look at the trades. Bloody hell. That's surprising. That's gone right up to the equator. It doesn't happen that often. If that was to stay like that, they're in line for a really fast trip. If they can get down here and hook onto that. So I'm going to push this forward a week and just see what happens. In fact, before I even do that, I'm going to work out roughly when they should get to this area. 400 miles, it's going to be 4 days. Because they're not going to go through that bit far. So in 4 days' time, let's see what's sitting there. Okay, here we go. I'm going to bring my auxiliary keyboard in. So it's 29th. Okay, so there's the starting to drop down already. There's 30, so that's one day. It's still not much breeze in front of them. Then a little headwind, little little beam wind from the northeast on day 2. It's dropping down a little bit. Yep, it's 31. So there's the first. It's still sort of there, and then we'll go through to the second. They're going to go slow. There's nothing there, and it's starting to pull away. And you can see it dropping down. So at that point, they're going to be about here somewhere, and it's dropped down substantially. That's 5 degrees. 6 5s a 30. 6 5s a 30. Cheapest. My brain. 6 5s is 30. So if it was 5 degrees, there's 300 miles. It's dropped down 300 miles because it was right up here, and then it's dropped down to 300 miles. And they're going to be sitting there trying to chase it. And let's just see if it's continuing to drop as they get closer. Yeah, it's going to be hard. There you go. So they just missed it. They could have got a good boost there, and it's hovering. I'm just wafting through. There's the fourth. It's all hovering very clearly at about 5 degrees south of the equator. So 300 miles south of the equator. That's where it's going to sit. And this is the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. So it's 8 days. So if that's about 4, let's just see how far it is. Let's say they're aiming there 600 miles. So yeah, it's gonna take them another week before they get to it. But boy, if this holds then from there, it's still a good ride. So give them a week, they might get there. So just for fun, I'm going to take it right to the end of the forecast and see what's happening. This could get very inaccurate by that stage, but yeah, it's doing its normal thing at about 5 degrees. So, and some funny stuff right through to the 7th. So that's where they're going to have to get. They're going to have to get down here. That'd be nice. But okay, so you can see there what's going on. It's going to be a very slow trip. Trying to get down. We're back to real-time weather now. They're pushing to get under the Galapagos, and that's the natural course. I think they've all taken the same route. It was a hopeless idea to go north, so they're all doing the right thing. Easy for us, harder for them. It seems really hot. Had a couple of birds landing on the boats. You can see that. Some lightning and thunder and bits as well. Super hot inside. Adam did a great little live piece today, but he's talking, which was really interesting. And you can't see anything about the ocean around him. And so I sent him a comment and said, "Hey, that was great, but just before you stop," because he stopped talking, but before you stop talking, just move the camera around so we can see what the ocean looks like, which is cool. All right, there's not much more I can show you there. The waves will be less than a meter or so. Temperature in the low 30s. Pressure, there'll be no pressure gradient. Clouds doesn't really matter. It's a bit overcast, and the clouds form big thunderheads in the afternoon. So I think that's all we've got. No use looking at the leaderboard. It really doesn't tell you anything at the moment. So that's it. Boy, that was quick. Okay, we'll come back here and see if anyone's got something for me. I just put a podcast I did with Andy at 59 North. A great guy, interesting guy. Runs a couple of charter boats for adventure sailing. If you want to get miles, you go out on one of Andy's boats. He's a really cool guy. We've known each other for a long time, and we finally met in person for the first time after years of back and forwards on all sorts of stuff in Lagos before the start of the Transat. He was there. He saw the mini fleet and all that sort of stuff, which was cool. He was very excited about that, and we because I did a podcast with him some years ago, and in fact, some of the guys in the mini globe race, in fact, Josh is one of them. Josh heard me doing a podcast with Andy probably about 4 years ago, and that was the podcast that made him decide to build the boat. He said, "Bugger me, that sounds like fun. Let's do it." And that's happened to a few others. Boy, we've got a lot going on with the with builders at the moment. We've been selling quite a lot of the plan sales are consistent. We're getting up to 280 and 280 and all that sort of stuff. But the number of everyone buying plans now is building straight away. They'll go straight onto building. So we're busy answering questions and doing all sorts of things at the moment. So there's another podcast I did with Andy. And it's a bit about the 580s and a bit about what we do with Adventure, and it's underneath this one. So if you want to have a lazy Sunday, you can listen to that. I think it goes through, I forget how long, 3/4 of an hour or something. So that's cool. And what else can I tell you? Adam was enjoying his Pacific experience. It was delivering exactly what he thought. Graham brought up a big thing, an interesting thing about the Robinson's 117 Days Adrift. This was where they had a Golden Hind plywood 30-footer that they were sailing from Panama out into the Pacific. And it must have been 40 years ago, because I'm 74, no, more than that, 45, 50 years ago. And they had a whole bunch of orcas smash the boat up, and the boat sunk, and they sat in a life raft. This was before the day of, here comes the messages again, before the day of EPIRBs and PLBs and all that sort of stuff. They didn't exist. And they drifted around in their Avon life raft for 117 days and were finally picked up. It's an epic book. I read it a long, long time ago, way back then. And this is right where they got rammed by the whales. So that was interesting as well. So anyway, I digress. I could start talking about early safety equipment, what we had, what we didn't have. When I started, you couldn't buy an EPIRB, but I bought a crash locator from an aircraft. So these things used to be in the back of the aircraft, and as the plane crashed, the G's would turn it on. But there was a manual switch as well. And so that I actually went out in the Pacific in '78 with a aircraft 1215.5 transmitting crash locator. So that's what you did in the day. Anyway, enough of that. Warren, g'day, Warren. The interview with Adam. Yeah, we put that up as well. Those interviews are really good. I try to get, everyone's got one except for John on day Delta 100 because we never got to him. He was always busy. But we'll do it later on. And I try to make it a bit about what's going on with the boats, but get behind the people so you get to know them. And I remember Adams was a good one. He, everyone's got a different way of expressing themselves. And everyone's interesting. They've all got great backstories, and Adam is the same. He's very, he's in the moment. And I bring up in that, I saw him quite, I won't call him depressed, but he was definitely down when he was in Shelter Bay Marina. But listen to the interview and you'll see what goes on. Everyone has their challenges, but he's into it now, which is kind of cool. Okay, hi Don. Any thoughts on changing the requirements of electric outboards only? No, they'll always be electric outboards. We don't want any petrol on board. A lot of people don't realise, but gas and petrol's very flammable, right? You've seen what happens. Put a match to it and it goes boom. Its flash point is petrol, right? Gas is very explosive. You put a match to that and boom. Guess what? A lot of people don't realise this, but if you put gas and petrol together, it's an inverse curve. It becomes like 5 times more flash points. So, and there's nowhere to store a fuel tank of petrol on a 580. And why would you worry about it? Like, it's not a little boat. It's meant to be a sailboat. It's like a dinghy. So if you're in trouble, you don't need your motor, right? You should sail. The only time you don't need your motor is when there's no wind, right? When there's no wind, you only need little electric. So we say a minimum of 1,000 watts. And the battery capacity, your sailboat, right? It's not going to be calm forever. If it is calm forever, stop and wait for the wind, right? The issue is one of treat it as a sailboat. It's easy to sail. I sailed around the world solo, not non-stop, 4 legs without an engine, right? You don't need an engine on a sailboat. You just sail carefully, So anyway, little electric outboards are the way to go. It's very... and remembering also, it's very sustainable in a strange sort of a way. And we're also discussing, we haven't put a trigger date on it yet, but we're also discussing for builders that we should actually be using some sustainable epoxy resins. And there's some green epoxy there that's really good, and it's available all around the world. And it's only a little bit more expensive, but it's freely available. And that's a decision we want to make later this year, in the next few months, but it may be that we say, right, all future boats have got to be using this sustainable and a bit green epoxy resin. Anyway, no changes to the outboards. It's just a minimum of 1,000 watts, and you can go bigger if you want. Warren, maybe Jane could do some merchandise sales and ship from China with their super cheap international postage to USA. Anyway, yes, I got my merch from France. China does crazy prices. I won't say I'm a bit of a fan with AliExpress, but we bought a lot of stuff on AliExpress. We understand the Chinese stuff, and we do. we've used Alibaba as well, and we get a lot of our stuff from China direct through Jane's connections in China, and it saves a lot of money. But when you buy some stuff off AliExpress, it's ridiculous. You can't work out how they freight it. It's so cheap, just you buy something and it's here 10 days later and it's come by airmail and it costs nothing, the whole package. When we want to send someone a hat, it'll cost us €20 to deliver the hat, and that's not including the price of the hat. So merchandise is our biggest bugbear at the moment. It always has been, it probably always will be, but anyway, we'll work something out eventually. Warren, for your information, ads still popping up in the live, but might be my YouTube. Anybody else getting ads in the live? I hope not. As I say, we've gone the lowest level of advertising. We haven't ramped it up, but there is advertising there, and I'm not sure what's going on. We certainly haven't changed anything. We've been living with that format for quite a few years, 3 or 4 years, and nothing's changed. Looks like Renault will have more and more competition. Let's hope so. Kerry should be up there, but that's life. That's the nature of what is logistics and so on, sailing around the world. But yeah, it'd be good to give him some competition. G'day, Ricardo. No ads for me. Yeah, that's cool. Peter Colwyn, no ads for me either. There you go. Thoughts on winches versus winchless system? Would you go winches for a 580? Winchless for a 580? No, I wouldn't. Winches don't cost a lot of money. I had two little barrier synthetic winches on Trekker, but I would absolutely put the winches there. Kerry and Renault both don't have winches, but I just know, for me, even when you're handling the sheets on the kites, you just wrap it around and it's just easier, But they've got a good system and it works. So everyone to their own, but I absolutely like the winch. It's quite surprising how much load can sometimes get on the reefs on the main. When you really want to crank it. It's just easy, It's traditional, it's easy, and so on. I think in hindsight, even though I really like a Genoa track with a Genoa car, plunge a pin and just slide it along, boom, boom, which is simple and it's easy and this, that, and the other. If you really wanted to race, you probably should be using a 360-degree sheeting arrangement with a friction ring. But there's a certain simplicity to a Genoa track. The critical thing then is when you do it, you've got to absolutely concentrate on where you put your track and what angle it's on. And because if you get it in the wrong spot, you're never going to get it right when you're sailing. So be careful with that, because I've seen a couple of boats and they're absolutely in the wrong spot. Absolutely in the wrong spot. And once you bolt them down, it's a pain to have to move them. So pay attention to that. There's a little cross on the plans, and that's where a fixed block would go. No track, no nothing. Just that's Giannis keeping it simple. But on these boats, you want to go for performance. So a track is good, especially if you have to have a track at least if you've got a furling Genoa furling system, and we may make that compulsory for the next MGR. That's another thing that will come up in the future. Because as you're furling it, the sheeting angle is going to change, so slide forward. So and all of that, if you're into it, the 360-degree donut is cool if you're into that stuff. But I kind of like the Genoa track. So and winches, I kind of like winches. It's not a big deal. It's very simple. Very versatile. Very reliable. That's it. So that's cool. So thanks for that. Journey of Sharks. Are there more boats following the fleet besides Coconut? There's one other, which is a Russell 36. I think some of you may know we were actually going to have the MGR voyages. We were going to invite up to 6 cruising boats between sort of like 35 feet and maybe 50 feet. There's a lot of people cruising around the world. There's cruising boats everywhere. And for whatever reason, we thought it might be a good idea to have some boats follow around. In hindsight, I don't think it's needed. Coconut's fun. Coconut's part of the family, part of the McIntyre adventure events and stuff, and he's just a crazy guy. He's, that evolved. He just wanted to do it. I said, hey, get a tracker and we'll put you on us. And he's happy to be start boats in places, and he's got experience. He's been a real help to the entrants who are having challenges with their celestial navigation, because he's a retired naval commander, survey and all that stuff. So it's worked out fun. And the other guy, Mike, is on a Russell 36. Doesn't need to be connected, but he's having fun. He gets a free dinner everywhere. I'm not sure why. We had a few people jump in and turn up at our prize presentation and all that sort of stuff. And we pay, that's fine. So, but anyway, he's a cool guy. He's got a bloody rustler. That's the only problem, And if you follow the GGA, you know what I'm saying there. There's a lot of them. They're everywhere. Cheapers. More fun with other boats. No, not really. They're a nice boat. Russell 36 is a good boat. So that's the only other one. Warren, is anybody launching chutes from the cockpit instead of furler? Absolutely. I launched mine from the laundry basket. Yeah, well, they come with a launch bag. You just clip onto the rail. So if you went forward, you can open it up, connect the sheets, and brace and so on, and just pop it like normal, like you would on a maxi boat. Okay. So you can do that. Some of them will hoist them from the cockpit. Like you've probably seen that classic bit of stuff. If you haven't seen it, it's worth a look. Kerry at the start in Lanzarote from Rubicon Marina. He was second to last around the line. They got caught with no wind way down the line. Jasmine wasn't far behind. Anyway, he finally gets around, and then he pops his A3, and it was just great. It was live on the live of the start, but then we clipped and just cut out. Jane just chopped that sequence out and put some music on it and set it. And you'll see he's hoisting up the cockpit. It's just all trash in the cockpit. He sets it out, and when you pull it down, you pull it back in through between the boom and the open foot of the main, so it gives it a bit of control while it's coming down. So that's pretty cool. There's been a different. So the A3 and the A5 and the A7 can both be run on furlers because they've got a straight luff. In other words, you can pull the luff out tight, but the A3, it's funny how the smallest numbers is the biggest kite. The A3 is the big one, and it's got a rounded luff, so you can't have a tight luff with a torsion rope on that, but you can have what they call a top-down furler, which a lot of people don't understand, but it's got a furling drum, and then it's got a line that goes to the swivel at the top, and the kite is still attached there, but it's on its own little swivel around the drum. So even though that line is tight, the spinnaker itself is loose because it's got a curved luff, and the idea is that when you start turning it, it will catch the sail, and it'll wrap the sail up on the torsion line, even though it was a curved luff, and then it's furled. But the principle falls apart if you want to leave it furled on the bow of the boat, on the bowsprit, because it's very hard. You don't get a tidy furl, right, with a top-down furling system. You get a very rough furl, and there'll be some sections that are bagged out. It looks really untidy, right? And the problem is if you leave that there, a bit of wind will get into part of it, and it'll start to billow out where the wind has got inside the untidy furl, and then it gets completely out of control. If the wind increases to 20 knots or 25 knots, you lose it completely. And the only way to do anything with it is to furl it all out, unfurl it, open it all out, and try and tidy it up again, and it never works, right? So, because what you're supposed to do with a top-down furler is turn it, grab the sail, it gets twisted up in the line, and when it's all on there, you're meant to drop the whole lot. And if you do that, it's okay. So, in other words, once it's wrapped around this really untidy, messy furl on the top-down furler, you're supposed to take it down and take it off, put it in the bag, and take it below. And it's an easy way to do that, but you can't leave it there. The A5 and the A7 you can, if provided you get a tidy furl, and you've got to be careful the way you do that. If you get a nice tidy wrap, it'll sit there in 20, 30 knots of breeze, and it's just furled up, and it's not a problem. You don't have to take it down all the time, but that's another little trick for young players. If you do have a problem, it's a big problem. If it pops out, you might have seen it on some of the. There was some there on the live of the sailability sale we had on the harbour. I think Argo had a problem. And you can see these little bits that are starting to open up. And when you see it's a big problem. So yeah, there's a few options there. And there's a bit to be said for setting the big kite, the A3, from the cockpit and pull it down in between the main and the boom. But then you got this big thing. If it gets wet, you've got to drag it down below. I hate salt water down below. So everything's a compromise on a boat. I can't see what one of Robinsons were in a large 45-volt carbon plank boat. No, not at all. Unless I'm getting the name wrong here. There was one that was a bilge keel, a, a bilge keel Golden Hind, which was a 32 footer. Am I thinking of the wrong ones here? Graham might have to adjudicate on this. I'll have to, because I haven't seen it forever. But the ones that I remember, 117 Days Adrift, was in their Golden Hind plywood, because where the whales hit it popped the chine. Right, they got it right on the chine, split the stringers and stuff. Exactly the same, very similar, exactly the same build concept as the 580, but a much bigger boat. And it was a bilge keeler, I'm sure. Um, so maybe, but there's a few boats that sunk around there and drift around for a while. Maybe I'm getting the words wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Is it the Robinsons? Oh, now you got me thinking. Anyway, we can look at that. I'll try and Google it after and see what the reality is. Hey, Nigel, thanks. Hey, thanks, guys. Must be ads in live for me only. Maybe, Warren, you never know. Roger had ads. Okay, got it. Sustainable resins would be a really good move for the Alpha 580. Yeah, exactly. It's seriously on the agenda. I've just been too busy to do the analysis, but I found the company that can do it. They distribute all over the world. It's not that much more expensive. It's user friendly, and we could even we looked at using hemp instead of glass cloth when we started this whole thing back in 2020, but it wasn't quite there yet, and they're not quite there. So, but glass is environmentally friendly and sustainable. The glass cloth, fiberglass, is basically glass, which is silica, but the resin is the problem. And so I think we're on that. We're on the road. We're heading down that track, and we might make a decision in a few months. And it won't add huge cost either. So no ads, Graham. I don't get ads as much as they'd come along the bottom like a header. Peter, hi Don. Will the skippers be anchoring off the islands or going into a marina? None of the boats have a tender, right? They all have tenders. It's fantastic. You should see the tenders. Holy dooly. There's all sorts. As an example, in fact, I've taken photos of a lot of them. I was going to do a gallery of everyone's different tender. You probably didn't see the big golden duck on the marina. That belongs to John on Deja 100, I think he's got, yeah. It's a giant blow-up duck or swan, like your pool party thing. That's his tender, okay? Kerry's much more sophisticated. He's got a stand-up paddleboard. Adam has got a really cool sort of like an open-ended blow-up kayak with a clear view front, so he can look at the coral while he's paddling that. Jasmine's got the most sophisticated one. It's a proper little tender. It's really quite cool. But then a few of them were getting a really fancy one. A couple of them got this out of what's the big sporting shop? What's the big sporting shop, Jane? Jane? What's the big sporting shop? You know, where we get clothes and bits and pieces from? Decathlon. That's it. Yeah, there was a Decathlon in Panama. And there's a backpacker's one-person dinghy, which is fantastic. It's made of super light, strong, inflatable material. It weighs nothing. It weighs like about 3 kilos. And it's the neatest bloody... It's really good shape, blows up, and blah, blah, blah. It was super expensive, about $500 or something. But it's very slick, and I think 2 or 3, a couple of them bought those ones. And so then there's a few other versions. So basically, I brought up the discussion of tenders a year or so ago, and I said, hey, look, you better think about it, because you're going to be in places where you haven't got a marina and you're going to have to paddle and all that stuff. So pretty much everyone's got their own version of a tender. And the plan is in Marquises, usually you don't go in anywhere there. There's no port. You anchor off and use your tender. In Papeete, hopefully it's a marina everywhere, but I've mentioned it might be a problem, and they might have to anchor in the mooring pool and then tender across. In Fiji, they're all in their own pool. If you know Vuda Marina in Fiji, it's fantastic. So they're in their own little pool right by the bar and the club and the restaurant there, outdoor restaurant and stuff. It's direct from Adventures in Paradise. If you ever used to watch Adventures in Paradise, 50, 60 years ago on television with, what was his name, Roy or Roy Thinger. Oh, great! I used to watch every episode. It's beautiful. You come into this like a little lagoon, palm trees, and bits and pieces, and that's right where the 580s are going to be. In Tonga, there's an anchorage there in Pangai, but they could come into the harbour and tie stern to the wall like in a med mooring arrangement, but they'd still need to use your tender because you wouldn't get close enough. The rudder's in the way by the wall. So it's a bit of a mix, but tenders, when they get to Cocos Keeling, they'll need a tender. When they get to Thursday Island, they'll need a tender. Going into Tanna in Vanuatu, going to Tanna, I don't know whether you know that, but to look at the volcano there, it's an active volcano. So tenders, they've pretty much all got tenders, so a bit of fun there. Digress. I can't see the thing over here. Okay. Will the lack of wind with the currents drag the fleet east and then the strong currents drag them back to Panama? No, that's quite a way away. So you'll see the other currents going back up as it's hundreds and hundreds of miles away. So at the moment they've gone through two lumps of quite favourable currents. Then after that, there is currents, but it's usually cross current. There's a little bit of potential head current when they get to Panama, when they get underneath the Galapagos. But generally, then once they're on their way, if they get into trades, generally it's a favourable current, but not a strong one. It's half a knot, but it all helps. At least it's not on the nose. So current will become less of an issue after about another week. But they will be going through a lot of light patches now. They're coming out of that little very favourable weather they've had coming from Panama so far. They've made good time, but they're going to struggle a bit for the next week. I think you'll hear some frustrations. So Warren Robinson definitely in old car. I'm not sure what that is. Sepka 5 building carrier, Sepka 5 metre ocean racer. News on the balance cops on 99 and 100. Oh yeah. Okay. So I hope the Setka's going well. I like the Setkas. People know, the Setka's a 5 metre version of the 580. Not quite the same. It's not just a scaled up one. It's a bit different. But the Setka's got a grand history, and there's 6 or 7 planning for their 100 expedition across the Atlantic. So they'll be taking off across the Atlantic next year, I think. Is it the end of this year or next year? End of this year or January or something. So, okay, so no news on them yet. They're still sitting there. That's the only thing I can tell you at the moment. And I thought they would have probably gone today. They thought they would go on Thursday. I knew they wouldn't go on Friday, but I haven't spoken to them. It's only a guess, but they should be running out of jobs to do by now. So hopefully they'll get underway shortly and join the fun. Great, everything good for everyone. Thanks, Jiva Silva. Graham, Decathlon should sponsor Pila. They should sponsor us too. Just joking. No, we at one stage we thought that a long time ago for different events. Yeah, Decathlon, they don't spend money on advertising, and they very rarely sponsor. That's part of the reason they sell pretty good gear that's a pretty good price. And in fact, I can say it because I'm not really, we're a bit backed by Zeke, but their wet weather gear and some of that stuff they've got is incredible value. It's incredible value. And it's pretty good. So we still buy clothes out of there, stuff. Jonathan, sorry to be a broken record, but if you're watching this, you must be liking it. So please help Don, Jane, and the rest of the crew by remembering to hit the like button. Thanks, mate. You missed. I actually pulled that up at the beginning. So yeah, thanks, Jonathan. It does help a lot, actually. And when it's still not up to what we had with the Transat. Transat at 8.5. We're only up about 7.1 at the moment on Facebook. So YouTube's going okay. Come all hit the like. Thanks, Graham. Brendan, would you consider sneaking over north of the Galapagos, given where the wind holes are in the south? Oh, I don't know. I haven't had a look at that. There is a northern route, but it didn't work out for anyone on this one. No one chose it because it just wasn't viable with the weather that was forecast over a week or 7 or 8 days that you get a reasonable stuff off windy. But some people go over the north. Generally speaking, and in fact, I've been saying this for some time, when you look at the planning, people sort of say, because going back a couple of years, we thought, we should all stop in the Galapagos and have a good look because it's a pretty amazing place. Never been there. And then all the reports you read is, if you go down to the Galapagos, you're going to have real trouble getting out of there with a big wind hole on the other side. Now, I'm not seeing that now, but there's a bit of a transition between the El Nino and the blah, blah going on at the moment. So maybe the trades are just doing funny things, but they all sort of, the popular opinion was sort of like, yeah, you go down the Galapagos and then you've got a problem getting out, to try and catch on over the other side. But what I'm seeing now is kind of pretty straightforward. I think they're all heading in the right direction. And yes, they're going to go quiet for a week, but the trade winds are there and they're going to get there eventually. And they're not wasting time at the moment. They've still been making their 100 mile a day. So let's wait and see. Maybe it's not going to be as long as we think. So yeah, interesting point, Brendan, but no real defining reason at the moment to see what's going on, because you eventually want to get down to those southeast trades in the southern hemisphere, south of the equator. So you'd break that routine and might take longer. Jasmine Tenzer was a Facebook marketplace used bargain by a guy I've heard for £100. Shit, that's not bad. that's a deal. That's pretty cool. So yeah, it's a nice little tender. I'll find all the photos and see if I can put some pictures up of tenders later, because there is some funny ones. They're quite cool. Okay, that's it. So thanks for that. Have a good weekend, and we'll probably be back tomorrow. I've got to clear out a lot of things, and tomorrow will be a big day. So enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you all tomorrow. So see you later. Oh, hang on. What's going on here? Oh, jeepers. I don't know. I'm pressing the wrong buttons. It says I'm supposed to be on that. So if I go, jeepers, hide that one. I'm going to hide me.
Witness history in the making. The McIntyre Mini Globe Race 2025. Small boat, huge